Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session of Saturday Talk by JanyuTechnologies. Today, we have Dr. Sumit Roy ji to deliver today's session. A brief introduction of Dr. Sumit Roy ji. Dr. Sumit Roy has done his MA in Philosophy from Savitribai Phule University, Pune, his MPhil Master of Philosophy from Savitribai Phule University, Pune, and PhD in Environmental Ethics and Sustainability from Savitribai Phule University, Pune. At present, he is working as Associate Professor at Sri Balaji University, Pune since April 2023. Today is going to speak on the topic, the sacred text of ancient India and its relevance in the modern times. Over to you, Sumit sir, from here.
Yes, first of all, thanks to JanyuTech for inviting me for this program on the sacred text of India and its modern day relevance. And it is always very, very enlightening and also quite exciting to pass this sacred knowledge to anybody who's interested in this kind of a domain. And every time I deliver something of this profound program, I also learn something through question answers and also through the research which I have already done. And anyway, learning is an ongoing process. The more we research and the more we deliver, the more we get refined. So welcome to my program. So it is Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinya Sarve Santu Niramaya, which is actually the Shanti Mantra from one of the texts of the Upanishads. Today, I'm going to touch base on the sacred text. I mean, as the title of the topic signifies, the sacred text. And so what I'm going to do is that maybe first few minutes I'm going to give you overall structure of the sacred text that we have in India, and then how it has got classified, and then I'll get into maybe few of the sacred texts which I have read. And if you actually get into the entire sacred text of Bharat, it is so vast and it is so deep that one lifetime will be less to understand the entire significance. So it requires certain element of patience and also a lot of dheeraj to go one by one and then slowly get into its real meaning and its context also. So it's so I'm studying this subject quite seriously and professionally since 2011, because that was the time when I have took admission on philosophy in Savitribai Phule Pune University, and that too because one of a very elderly professor introduced me to the concept of darshan. Prior to that, of course, I had an interest from my childhood also, but I used to visit a lot of ashram and pick up books here and there, and those readings are quite scattered. They were not very, very focused about, but definitely those scattered reading also has helped me to get into certain kind of an interest. So when I got into professionally, then I understood that yes, this is the way one should actually read the text and also understand. So it is for me, the sacred text is a journey, and I have just scratched the surface of the kind of repository of knowledge that we have in our great country, and much to devote and much to understand and much to go deeper into it. But definitely whatever I have learned during several years, I'm going to just present in a very crisp form. And this particular program is also going to give you a certain element of motivation to pick up a couple of texts of your own interest. So this particular session is basically, I would say, an introductory session onto the sacred text and of India. But definitely also have sacred texts of the other parts of the world also, especially China and even in the Europe also. I'll just touch base so that we can also have a separate session. And many of the sacred texts of India has influenced great people across the globe. If you get into the English literature, we have Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, who got influenced by the Indian Upanishads. And also scientists like Albert Einstein, Oppenheimer, Schrödinger, Max Planck, and many more, they got influenced by Indian philosophy and especially with the Eastern philosophy. So let's directly get into the subject matter, because maybe first few minutes I'm going to give you only the structure of it, and then we'll slowly proceed. So let's get into so this is the Hindu scriptures structure. So let's understand the broad dynamics. We have Shruti and the Smriti literature. Shruti basically talks about something which is being heard, something that we have listened. And from whom we have listened? Now that is actually a $1 billion question, because who has written, we don't know. Hence it is called as Apurushaya, because it is called as the sages had intuited, and they got direct revelation. So it is a direct communication from the higher ups. When I say higher ups, means some of the deities, the celestial deities, and it has gone to the some of the great sages, which is almost anything between 5,000 to maybe 10,000, or even further to that also. Shruti is something which cannot be changed. It is eternal. Hence, it is called Adi and Anant. It is called Sanatan. Okay, that is one. And then we have the another dimension is called Smriti, which is being which of course with changing times many things got changed. With changing time, anything got modified, and it is more to do with something that has been passed over to the next generation. So Shruti is something which is eternal. Smriti is something which is which has changed, which got modified with period of time, because history also is being sometime rewritten or distorted. So Smriti, of course, has also given us in terms of certain kind of a changes with the civilizational adaptation that has happened in the Bharat. If you go back to the history, because what you're topping, actually we are talking a lot on the historical dimension, and history of philosophy is basically history. And the cradles of civilization in Bharat, if you say it is Dholavira, it is Lothal and Rakhigari. That is mostly in the western part, that is the Gujarat, and of course the northern part, that is Haryana we are talking about. And if you talk about especially the Mahabharata, where it has happened, Kurukshetra, Ramayana we are talking about, because these are something which you all are aware about. So when you talk about these two important, you can say the epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata is something that everybody has read. Even if you have not read, you have heard from your mom, your dad, or your grandfather. So that is something that we all live up to, and we have grown by, and also we pass it to our children. But of course, we are not only confined to the Ramayana and Mahabharata, because Ramayana and Mahabharata is popular because there are movies have come. There are series on this also, and there are various production house has made a lot of entertaining media promotions on this. So definitely it is good because it has got and percolated. And unlike the Greek mythology and the Greek philosophy, of course, they stand still quite strong, but many of them have got lost. But in Bharat, to a large extent, all these things are still alive. So I'll spend some time on the first slide, because this is a very important slide, because generally when I talk on this subject about sacred matter to a lot of people, they say that it kahan se chalu kare? Yeah, I think ye padhna kahan se chalu kare? So then it became quite a difficult answer to the padhna kahan se chalu kare. But if you know the structure, probably you can pick up that where actually you want to start. So Shruti is something which is eternal. Smriti is something which got developed and modified over a period of time. And Shruti, of course, we are talking about Shruti. We have Vedas, that is Rig Veda, Samaveda, the Yajur Veda, and the Atharva Veda, and they are further divided into Samhita, Brahmana, Aryanka, and the Upanishads. Now I'll talk maybe one minute, or maybe even less than that for each of the Vedas. Rig Veda is the oldest and the longest, and it actually talks about the creation principle. And one of the creation principle is given is something called Nashidiya Shukta, and the second one is called Purusha Shukta. Nashidiya Shukta basically gets into the very creation principle, which is very close to the modern science we get into, which is a very popular one. Other than that, also it talks on the praises of the Indra and the Varuna and the Agni. Okay, so we can see that there's a lot of environmental dynamics in the Rig Veda. Samaveda, the entire classical Indian music has come from the Samaveda. It is out of this 4 Veda, that is the smallest one. Yajur Veda is something to do with the rituals and the sacrifices. And all these 3 Vedas, that is Rig Veda, Samaveda, and Yajur Veda, actually came first. That is called Trai. And Atharva Veda came actually at the last. So Atharva Veda is more to do with the practicalities of human problem. And it has to do with disease, it has to do with spells, it has to do with incantations, it has to do with healing and all these aspects. Whereas the first 3, Rig Veda, Samaveda, and Yajur Veda, are much more transcendental. And Atharva Veda is much to do with trying to eradicate a lot of human problem. And all these Vedas are actually divided into these 4 dimensions. That is Samhita. Samhita means all collection. And Brahmana is actually the mantras and the hymns. And Aranyaka is basically, it is the forest treaties, because in those days there were forests, and few of the sages has taken a decision to be in the forest and to meditate. And Upanishads, of course, is something which is of my interest. And we have close to 200 Upanishads. Out of them, 108 is actually officially being proven that it is there, and it is also being stated. But out of this 108, we have 11 Upanishads, which are called as the principal Upanishads. So all the Upanishads are actually the derivation of these four Vedas. We'll also get into the derivation. That means Kunsa Upanishad Kunsa Ved se aaye. That actually we'll get into. And we'll find that only Yajur Ved is the only Ved that has two divisions. Otherwise, Rig Ved, Samaved, and Atharva Ved doesn't have any kind of a division. They are single actually. Okay, I'll get back that also into the Shrutis Vedas. I'll come back again, and we'll get into Smriti. We have in Smriti, we have Itihas, that is basically the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and Bhagavad Gita is a part of the Mahabharata only. And of course, it is being mentioned, and Bhagavad Gita is also a part of the Vedas, because Bhagavad Gita is also called as Gita Upanishad. So we'll find certain connection between the Shruti and the Smriti also. Puranas are something which we have 18 Mahapurana, and then we have 18 Upapurana, and then of course we have additional Upapuranas, which is 180. So they can understand the vastness of the Indian system. And now Mahapuran jo hai, now you'll find what is the difference between the Vedas and the Upanishads and the Mahapuran. So Vedas, actually, I have told you, there are four Vedas, and they are very vast. And the extract of them is the Upanishads. And it was Veda Vyasa who has composed this both the Mahapuran and also the Vedas, four Vedas. And it was being stated that the Vedas are too abstract and too aphoristic and too terse, and people are unable to really get them. So make something much more lighter. So Mahapurana are actually are being written after the Vedas, and the Mahapuran we have 18 Mahapuran. We have Brahma Puran, Padma Puran, Garud Puran, and Mahapurana is something which is very, very close to our life, because of the king. If you see the Durga Puja, which is coming from the Markandeya Puran, and anything to do with the last rites of human beings is to do with the Garud Puran. Okay, and a lot of Tirth Yatra which human beings are still doing, that has to come from almost all the Mahapuran. And we'll find a lot of stories which are already there in the Mahabharata and also in the Ramayana. They also are there in the Mahapuran also. So Mahapuran are very, very engaging, because they get into rituals, they get into vrats, which we all do. We do upavas, and we have certain kind of vows that we take on certain days. Even the Shiv Puran talks so much on the Trinity, and even the creation principle. And so Mahapuran is something which is so practical and so much with our daily lives. So though we may not read Mahapuran, but they are very much in our part and parcel of our life. And sometimes it is every day, including visiting temples and vrats and the Panchang, and then the calendars and the geography and the cosmology, and even the Jyotish aspects and astrology. So it is something that we all practice, we all do. We may not refer to a specific Puran, but they are very part of our life, including the pujas that you do every day. So many of the worshipping principles are also there in the Mahapuran. But they are vast. Skanda Puran is the most, it is encyclopedic. It has 81,000 slokas. Agamas are basically to do with the temple construction and the worships and the rituals. Then you have the Darshana. Now, being a student of philosophy, I have studied all those 6 school of philosophy that I have studied during my masters, and also in my MPhil I have done much more refinement, and they are very much close to again our day-to-day life also. Like Nyaya Darshan has to do with our arguments and logic, which is very close to in today's like if you get into the parliament, if you go into any kind of a law, and if you get into any kind of a good brainstorming, so one has to know the logic dimension from the Nyaya. So, and they have all stated various categories. How do we actually debate? Because generally we do brainstorming. You use the word called brainstorming in our management, but we never tell people that how you should brainstorm, how you should debate, how you should argue, and how you should put the case forward. Even for your corporate presentation, for example, JanyuTech is doing a presentation to a foreign client. So what relevance it has from the Nyaya Darshan? So how do you take from that actually? So how do you take certain kind of a logic from that? So Nyaya, of course, has a lot of relevance in research also. Vaisheshika is very close to physics and chemistry, because it gets into Vaisheshika means Vishesh. So it is very, very atomic. It is very, very molecular. And Rishi Kannad has given that. Sankhya means the word actually, it means enumeration. And Sankhya philosophy is considered as one of the top-notch philosophy in among all philosophy that we have in India. And it was Kapila is considered as the propounder of this particular philosophy. Sankhya Darshan is there in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita because it talks about Purusha and the Prakriti, and it breakdowns and it actually gives us something called Tattva Gyan. Tattva means something which is essence, which is core, and we all human beings are trying to understand the core. Even if you today get into the modern day chemistry and the modern day physics, it is also based on and modern day biology, especially molecular biology, and also even the gross biology. It is actually based on the Sankhya because it talks about Indriya, it talks about motor organs, it talks about sense organs. Even psychology and biology both are coming from Sankhya Yoga because I always study from the context of present day operation. And yoga, of course, it is yoga is something which is so old, and it is so ancient, and it is also so modern. And I think in today's context, Americans and Europeans are also doing yoga, and it is an industry today. But yoga is not only the asanas, that is only one of the spectrum among the 8 spectrum we have. We have Yoga Sutra Patanjali, which has 196 slokas. So when you are doing any asanas, one has to also know some of the aphorisms from the yoga school. It is something which has to do with our health and even our mind also. Purva Mimamsa has to do with a lot of rituals, and the Uttara Mimamsa is something to do with the Vedanta, again, which is also of my interest because that actually goes with the Upanishads. So, and then of course we have Dharma Sastra, we have Manusmriti, Yaganvalkya, Parashara, and the others. So, and Dharma Sastra is something which actually gives us a moral conduct. Now, Vedangas are something which is again very practical because Siksha here means not education. Siksha here means pronunciation. Vyakaran is the grammar. Chandas is the prosody or the meters, the way the slokas are being constructed. Nirukta is etymology. That means the origin of an word. Jyotisha talks about the astrology and the astronomy, the movement of the stars and how it influences you. For example, the American psychology even the London School of Psychology, they have considered the moon influence on human beings. You say lunatic and all, what actually Jyotish, you will find that how does Graho Nakshatra is affecting you. Kalpa has to do with the rituals. And of course, the rituals are so common in our life. Then we have Upaveda, we have Ayurveda, which is a subject by itself. We have a course on that, and people are doing a course and they are becoming doctors. Dhanurveda has to do with military science. Gandharva Veda has to do with the music. And Arthashastra has to do with the economics and the wealth. And it was Vishnu Sharma or Chanakya, the main counselor of Chandragupta Maurya, one of the most successful emperor of India, who was being counseled by Chanakya. So this is a very broad classification of the sacred literature or the sacred text of India. Now it becomes very, very overwhelming at times that kaun sa pare, kya pare, and kahan se chalu kare. Of course, it is all up to you because if you are very much rooted to the ground and what it brings to me, I think you can start with Arthashastra. And Arthashastra itself is huge and it is voluminous because it has total, I think, 6,000 slokas and it has 150 chapters, and it is being divided into 15 books, but always one can start from the first book itself. And you can understand that how much of pain has Chanakya taken and he has not written, maybe he has written some part of it, but it was actually a compilation by a lot of sages and by a lot of scholars in those days. And whatever I've studied is that Arthashastra was lost for almost close to so many years, because Chanakya has written that almost more than 2,000 years back, and it was it was there in the market, it was there in some of the olden universities, but it got lost. And it was Professor Ramasastry found somewhere near Mysore, then it got published, and of course today you will find them in many of the reputed libraries, which is an abridged version. So it is good to know because that is something which probably even our politicians and our decision makers can also take something. And the kind of detailing that they have done, it is phenomenal because they talk about Amatya, they talk about council, that is council of ministers, they talk about Janapada, they talk about treasury, they talk about the kind of punishment, they talk about the water resource management, they talk about planning, and they talk about the schools of thoughts, and so much of dimension is there. If you want to get into philosophy, probably you can start with the darshanas. Especially Naya Darshana is something which is very close to research, and especially for man of science and technology will find a lot of help from it. Sankhya Yoga is more into enumeration, and and it has so much of a dimension in the way you are able to take your research studies, and you're actually understanding the tattva gyan so definitely. So this is actually a kind of a very broad dimension I'm giving you. So this is Astadasha Vidyasthana. So again, we have already seen this. So it is 4 plus 4 plus 6 plus 4. Okay, so this is Astadasha is 18 we are talking about. For 18 plus 6, we have 8 plus 6. Okay, so you can understand. So 14 plus 4, we have 18. So 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, 4 Upa Vedas, Ayurveda, Dhanur Veda, Gandharva Veda, and the Artha Sastra. 6 Vedangas, Siksha, Kalpa, Vekara, Nirukta, Chandas, and Jyotisha. And the 4 Upangas, they are Mimamsa. Mimamsa are basically the rituals. Naya is the logic. Puran, we have already seen. Mahapuran and Dharma Sastras are basically the moral conduct. So you will find that everything is not only spiritual. Many of them are to do with our practical life. For example, Ayurveda, all to do with medicine. Dhanur Veda is to do with military science. Gandharva Veda, of course, to do with the entire music and art. And Artha Sastra, which is to do with our economy and administration and management, okay, and the modern day management that actually we're talking about. So you can understand that that what percentage is into gross and what percentage is into the subtle. So you'll find that mind, of course, is something which is invisible, but all conflict, all geopolitical problem, all war problem, all warfare, and all are related to the subtle. So I strongly believe, and I tell this in the class, so it is very revolutionary, and many people may not agree, that we don't require the defense system, be it the artillery, be it air, or be it naval, because they are the product of wrong thinking. And idealistically, you should not have any kind of a conflict. So if there is no conflict, how much every nation can save, and that particular money on the defense, all three defense can get into education, they can get into infrastructure, and they can get into food, and they can get into maybe innovation. But unfortunately, this is something which is a far-fetched idea, and even the sages also knew about it. Hence, they considered those elements of human conflict, and hence they had a Dhanur Veda actually. So we have military science, but military science is a product of the more military weapons we have, and the more policies we have, and more lawyers we have, they are the manifestation of disharmony in any kind of a nation. So yada dharmasya glanir bharati bhavata abhuttarama dharmasya, you all know that actually. So we have 4 yugs actually. So we had the Krita Yug, that is the Satya Yug. Then of course we had the Treta, and then the Dwapar, and then the Kali Yuga. So Kali Yuga will have more of military science. So our sages predicted that actually. So Satya Yuga, of course, never had any kind of a policies. Even more doctors we have, and more, that is again a very far-fetched thoughts. More doctors we have and more hospitals we have, that means the country is sick. Idealistically, we should not fall sick. Idealistically. Now, we fall sick because of wrong thinking. So first the mind is diseased, then the body is diseased. So if you are diseased, okay, if you are diseased, what happens is that doctor should pay us. And if you are living well, you should pay to the doctor, because our medical science and MBBS don't teach us to stay well. They teach us to fall ill, because so that they can actually get a lot of revenue. So it is the other side of it we are talking about. These are all very far-fetched thoughts. So idealistically, we should not fall ill, but we'll all die because we are all programmed to die. But the question is that more we are falling ill means we have certain problem in the mind actually, prajna aparadha actually. So if the mind is displaced, the body will be displaced. So definitely our sages in the older times they had that kind of a vision to understand that we'll not always stay in the Krita Yuga or the Satya Yuga. The yugs will deteriorate and it will become a Treta, and then the Dwapar, and then the Kali Yuga. So more disease and more fights and more geopolitical problem means we have moved away from the text, from the sacred text. The question is, how do we take all these texts and come into a mode where everything is in harmony? Because ultimately everything is in harmony. Even the galaxies, if you get into the cosmology, because you have heard about Stephen Hawking. And who was Stephen Hawking? Now, Stephen Hawking was not a physicist. He was beyond a physicist. He was more like a cosmologist. And physics is just a sub-part of cosmology. So our sages were actually super physicists. So they have got into the galaxies, and they have gone into the helium, and they have gone into the quarks, and they have gone beyond quarks, where we don't have any kind of a scientific parameters to really identify them, because science has a limitation, but soul is beyond science. And our sages has gone beyond those dimensions, because anything that we can measure has a parameter. It is called parametric science. And there are a lot of things are beyond parameters. So are there any parameters for non-parameters, or for non-parametric we are talking about statistics. How do you really get into that? Now that is something where science will never be able to decipher, at least for next, we generally say types of civilization. We are now even not one, we are 0.7 civilization now. Now we have 5 types of civilization. Well, sometime I'll give a talk on various types of civilization. So maybe in 4th civilization, type of civilization, probably our science will develop to understand intergalactic dimensions, and then the teleportation dimensions, and those subtle dimensions where the body can totally get decomposed, and again it can recompose, and again it can assemble, and again it can come to a different form. Now probably our sages had that kind of a vision, or rather they have lived those dimensions to get those kind of an idea. So but these are all far-fetched, because present day humanity and the present human form and the present physical form cannot even get into the depth of it actually. But there are scientists who works on those dimensions beyond the physical dimension, and they get to the subtle dimension. So if you actually take this, so you'll find the gross dimension is only the Ayurveda, the Dhanurveda, and the Arthashastra. Even Gandharva Veda is actually the musical dimension. Music, you all know, is not everybody's cup of tea. Even if you try to learn music, one cannot learn music. So Gandharva Veda is actually one of the loka. So what has made Arijit Singh or Lata Mangeshkar to sing like that actually? So they are not ordinary human beings. They are all divine beings actually. So you and me probably can spend a lot of money to understand Sargam and a lot of lipis, but it is very difficult. So it comes to them quite automatically, and we don't have any science to understand that why, if there are 3 sisters or 4 sisters, one sister pick up and another 3 sisters cannot pick it up. Now we don't have any science for that actually. So we say it is luck, we say it is genetics, but how can it be genetics? Because you are from the same parents actually. So it is beyond genetics, it is beyond the lineage, it is something else. So science doesn't have any parameter or any measurement to do this actually.
Doctor, the talk was absolutely enlightening. Now, I'm a chartered accountant pursuing my PhD from School of Management in IIT Bombay.
Great.
Now, just have 3 or 4 points I just wanted to share and get your clarification also.
Yes.
First is I'm an Iyengar, so I follow actually Ramanuja and Alvar tradition generally.
Okay.
Not that I'm very proficient or this thing, but as a family we follow. So we generally there is a sort of a familiarity.
Okay.
Now, one of the questions I just wanted to share a perspective very briefly, half a minute. When the rishis had connected with the Supreme in terms of their penance through the chanting of either the mantras or through meditation, and could connect and sort of grasp the larger knowledge base and possibly that could be the reason why there was so much of knowledge at that point in time.
Yes.
And this is my perception. I just wanted you to give your this thing whether it is a right thinking process.
Now, yeah, absolutely.
The second is the classic this thing of this telepathy and communications without this thing is today we can see the mobile phones and there is a communication happening which is very similar in terms of. So yes. I think as an Indian society we should look at more scientifically in terms of our knowledge rather than being defensive. This is the second point I wanted to make.
True, absolutely. I mean, I also have a similar point. I do come from a core science background, so whatever I read in the Upanishads, I always try to relate that to science. Yeah, I think you're right because I think I already stated that a lot of things are based on parameters or parametric. We generally say there are a lot of things which are non-parametric. So we have there is something called science of consciousness, and the entire aspects of communication through internet or through a cloud is based on certain kind of frequencies. And frequencies not only with electronic apparatus, it is also with your brain and heart also. The more the mind is calm and the more the heart is calm, the more actually you become a very strong receiver. I believe that with too much of gadgets and too much of noise, our receiving capacity has got very, very dull. The question is, how do you connect to the source? Now, the more you are able to connect to the source, it is because of we are trying to cleanse the path of the srut jo hai, that we are trying to clean. And in those days, of course, we had more of greenery, we had less of toxicity, we had less of noise. Noise means both outside and inside. And the sonic dimension that is called Brahma Nada. The Brahma is the absolute. So we have Ahat Nada and Anahata Nada. So ahat is something which is struck, and anahata nada is which is unstruck. Can I listen to the unstruck sound, actually, which is already being... So hence those munis and the rishis were called as the mantra drashta. So who has written these mantras, we don't know. So it is being seen that it is the Lord, the Savitri and the Saraswati and the Brahma. They have directly given to some of the chosen few. And they could, and it is still there. Only thing is that we are unable to receive it. So more we are calm, the more we are meditative, the more the less we are hankering. And many things flashes upon us, actually. If you talk about Shakuntala Devi and Ramanuja, these people never gone to school, but they were the best mathematicians. So how come Ramanuja has actually talked about so much of mathematics? And then he went to Cambridge, and same with Shakuntala, actually. So a lot of dreams. Yeah, so it's a divine being so it is your drashta, and it comes to you. So a lot of equations, a lot of flashes, lots of things. Even Kekule, you go back to chemistry class, benzene ring, how he got it through your dreams, actually. Even some of us also get a lot of dreams, we get a lot of solutions in our dreams also. Only thing is that it happens once in our lifetime. Now for those sages, it becomes very, very frequent. So we have mystical experiences also. I'm sure everybody had mystical experiences. Only thing is that hum log usme gaur nahi karte. But that itself is a technology which human beings has lost.
Two very short points, sir, half a minute. One is, how does one, this is a very big point of discussion, but I'm just saying, Adi Shankara being Advaitam completely, has written Bhajagovindam song.
Yeah.
So that is a dichotomy. And second, last question I wanted to check is, there are many mantras which they say is Adi Shankara, Adi Shankara. Is there many stotram being passed off? Of course, Kanakadara stotram is of Adi Shankara, but are many stotram being passed off as Adi Shankara stotram these days? I stop here and I would like to be in touch with you if it is not
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can. Bhushan can share my email ID. Even you can share my number also, no issue. I love to really get in touch. Yes, because even Adi Shankaracharya's work, of course, he's very popular. But of course, we have more gurus and sages of his contemporary, of his time, actually. So one sage that I'm now studying is called Abhinava Gupta, and he was equivalent to Adi Shankaracharya. He is from Kashmiri Shaivism, is one of the literature that you can actually get into, because that is equivalent to the Advait. And then, of course, we have Vidyaranya. So the Brahma Sutra has a controversy whether it was the Bhashya was written by Vidyaranya or it was written by the Adi Shankaracharya. So there are certain controversies, but definitely there are other Vallabhacharya, Nimbarka, Ramanujacharya, Hastamalaka, Shureshwaracharya. So there are a lot of gurus of his time. They are almost equivalent to Adi Shankaracharya. But of course, if you talk about the maximum contribution in terms of the Bhashya and the Prakarana and the Stotras, maximum is being given to Adi Shankaracharya. But definitely we have more gurus, may not be in plenty, but few, who have also given a lot of stotras.
Thank you, Doctor. I will be in touch with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, most welcome. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Roy. I think this is one of the best lectures I have attended at JanyuTech.
Thank you, sir.
And I am full of gratitude for you and the JanyuTech team to decide on a topic on Ganesh Chaturthi Day today. And I think it's really a blessing that you came to this platform today.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is that now in India, this wealth of knowledge that we have in the country, lasting millions of years, and how you have touched upon every topic and covering every aspect of knowledge, how do we actually sort of salvage it? I think people like you who are so knowledgeable on the subject, and people like us who have actually spent our time under sort of Western education and sort of neglected this aspect and not concentrated too much on this, how do we actually salvage this for ourselves, for our future generations, and what is to be done? Because I have seen certain like Gita courses being done online, which actually teach the meaning and do the similar sort of things that you have talked. But there is such a wealth of knowledge, and such a wealth of experience and sort of to inculcate in our lives. But there is no systematic way of actually salvaging this and then dispersing it to our future generations. So, are there takes on that? Because I think you are the best man to set a guide. And
yes, sir. I think very valid question, sir. I have taken this as a mission. I have started my own company called Purushartha Collective. You can always visit that. Maybe I'll send this to Bhushan. You can select. You can pass it on to in your group also. I believe that in 2012 to 2020, this present government, BJP government, has started something called NEP, national education policy.
Right.
And every school and every college, they should have delivered this something called Bharatiya Gyan Parampara, and it is called as Indian knowledge system. But to a large extent, what is happening is that this is not being, they are not getting faculties proper, and even if they are getting somehow, it is not done in a proper, authentic way. So I think there's a far cry of the authentic knowledge passing on to the schools and the colleges, and even to some of this institutional body. I believe that this has to be a part and parcel of our schooling and also our college, and this should become a compulsory subject and not something that we are just following the compliance norm as per the government of India. But definitely, I think slowly and gradually we are doing something compared to what we have done. To 2020 onwards, now in the college that I'm teaching, this has become a compulsory subject. Though it is not non-credit system, but at least it has got started. So some good development is already taking place, and Mahabharata and Ramayana should be taught in a right context, and also a lot of scientific principles should be being related. Then only it can happen. So I think it is all about consciousness. It is all about relevance. It is all about having a sense of urgency, and also it is a matter of policy making also. So it is my mission till my physical body is on this earth, and I dissolve before I get dissolved onto this universal system. I'm going to do it. And with your people support and with so much of a conviction, I think we all together can do a lot of things.